So I'm going to switch gears and tell you a little bit about a resource that we have at River Network that's fairly new. We were fortunate enough to receive funding from the Coca-Cola Foundation to create this toolkit that is called Waste in Our Waters, a community toolkit for aquatic litter removal. Brenda, you can go to the next slide. So this toolkit was created as a way to help our member network and anyone else who needs resources to assess litter in their communities and then investigate different ways of managing their litter. So I'm just quickly going to go through some of the impacts of litter. So the environmental impacts obviously are pretty huge. You have microplastics getting into our waterways. There's harm to animals, toxins that come off of materials. You also have the social impacts. So trash can really create blockages in waterways and around waterways, which can cause flooding, which is detrimental to different communities. You can also get trash caught in fishing nets and vessels, which is really terrible, both socially and economically. And then the economic impacts can be quite huge as well because it costs so much money to manage litter in general. And then it can also bring down property values. So with all of this information, we were thinking about what can we do to help manage litter that might either be cheaper or could help with other options of ways to manage litter rather than the traditional methods that we have mostly been using. The next slide. So the toolkit really starts with how to address litter in your community. So the first step is to really figure out where is litter coming from, how is it getting there, and where is it going? Those are the real big questions that we were kind of looking at. So there's a lot of different impacts and things that go into evaluating litter in your community. And weather is one of the really big things that matter. So I'll talk a little bit more later about in-stream litter capture devices, but by paying attention to flooding events and different weather, you can really figure out, you can anticipate how litter will move in different waterways and plan for that in advance to kind of prevent the problem before it starts. So once you've assessed kind of where your litter is coming from, you can think about a lot of different options for ways to manage it, whether it's a traditional group cleanup where you just go and pick up litter, or you can install an in-stream litter capture device, which is a really great tool for trying to manage a lot of litter with less resources. So you can go to the next slide. Oops, sorry about the font. So cleanups obviously are really cost effective and can be a great way to engage with volunteers as well. But right now with COVID, it's a little hard to get together in large groups, and no one's going to do that right now, and it is not very safe. So we have been thinking about other creative ways of doing these group cleanups in a time right now where we really need to be cleaning up more litter that seems to be accumulating now that we can't be removing it so frequently. So we have actually been doing virtual cleanups with River Network. We use an app called Litterati, and it's on your smartphone. Anyone can download it. It's free to use, and it helps you collect a lot of information. So here you see a screenshot of the data that you can collect using the app, which is super helpful. Anyone can download it, and they can go out on their own time. They take pictures of their litter, upload it into the app, and then the admin can see exactly how many pieces and what has been picked up. It also creates these maps where you can see exactly what the impact of your litter on a geographic scale, which I think is really interesting. And this has been a really great resource for us because we have been working across the United States with different partners to do these virtual litter cleanups, and we're able to really visualize the impact that we're making. So that's a really good tool for us that we've really enjoyed using. I've heard of a lot of other organizations that are also doing virtual methods of cleanups, but there are also places still doing them in person. They just have smaller group sizes. They'll stagger the cleanup times so that not as many people have to be there at once, or they're just doing more regular cleanups with smaller groups to try to pick up all the trash that has been accumulating. So cleanups obviously are a great tool We love cleanups. We do them all the time, but they're not the only tool. And that's kind of what this toolkit really goes into. Next slide. So A Waste in Our Waters is a step-by-step guide that really helps you figure out what your community issues with litter are and what you can do with it later. So in the toolkit, you will find methods of assessing litter, like I mentioned previously, different cleanup strategies on top of what I had just mentioned with in-person cleanups. And then we get a really good comparison of litter capture devices, which are a really great tool that you can put in any waterway. And then it also goes through different methods of how to dispose of waste. So it's a really informative and holistic guide to help you and your community figure out how to manage your litter. So in-stream litter capture devices. These are some really cool devices that you can put in a variety of different types of waterways. We have a few partners that are working right now to put in-stream litter capture devices in their communities. The one that we have been working the most with are litter getters, which you'll see in the in-stream category. And the litter getter is, it's essentially just a boom with a cage that goes into the water. And as water's flowing downstream, it just goes into the cage. It kind of funnels into this cage. Then folks come once a week or so, and they pick up, take the litter out of the cage, sort it, and then recycle what's recyclable and throw away the stuff that's not recyclable. So litter getters are really effective at medium flow streams that do produce a fair amount of litter. And a litter getter, for example, costs around $20,000 to install. But there are many different options, as you can see, that have different cost points and different functionalities. And if you go into our toolkit, you'll find a really in-depth look at each type of device so that you can decide what's best for your stream or wherever it is that you'd like to capture litter. So it's a super helpful chart that we have in the toolkit, and it really helps understand that there's no one size fits all. Every stream is different, and we hope that with the toolkit you're able to really assess what might work best for your organization, considering that there are a lot of different options that could fit within a variety of different budgets. Next slide. So why is our toolkit helpful, and why should you share it? It's really was created just to empower communities and our partners to connect everyone that they're working with and try to solve these litter issues that they have in their communities. We did survey 12 different cities in the United States to understand how litter is affecting their communities and what they're doing about it. It was very interesting to hear about some of these places that can really pinpoint the target sources of their litter. For example, in one city, they talked a lot about the homeless population and how that was a really big issue that was causing litter for them. And so for them, instead of doing something like installing an in-stream litter capture device, which they did want to do, they wanted to go to the source and figure out how can we help the homeless population and maybe change legislation and create more options to help the homeless population so that we can sort of minimize the secondary issue of litter. So it's very interesting to kind of assess where litter is coming from, because you can really think about other methods to approach the issue aside from just picking up the litter.